California in the 1970s was a place many people dreamed of. Suburban streets, sunshine, and safety defined the atmosphere of countless communities. But just beneath the surface, something terrifying was unfolding. Something that would leave families shattered, cities paralyzed with fear, and police scrambling for answers. It started small, unsettling, but not yet monstrous. In 1974, the quiet town of Visalia began to experience a rash of break-ins. The burglar wasn't stealing valuables, but rather odd items. Photographs, pieces of clothing, personal effects. He often left behind a mess. Drawers overturned, furniture rearranged, tokens taken. He seemed to want his victims to know they'd been watched. He became known as the Visalia ransacker, and though the crimes felt disturbing, few could predict what they were the beginning of. One night in 1975, the ransacker was nearly caught. A police officer, Detective Bill McGowan, spotted a suspicious man outside a house. When he confronted him, the man turned and fired his weapon. McGowan survived, but the suspect fled into the darkness. After that, the burglaries abruptly stopped. But the man didn't disappear, he had just moved on. Beginning in 1976, a new terror took hold in Sacramento. A masked man began breaking into homes at night, often attacking women who were alone. But before long, he started targeting couples. He became known as the East Area Rapist, and his method was horrifyingly specific. He would stalk his victims in advance, watching them for days, sometimes weeks. He'd break into their homes beforehand to unlock windows or leave warning signs. Then, in the dead of night, he'd strike. Wearing a ski mask and wielding a knife or gun, he'd shine a flashlight into their faces, waking them with terror. If a man was present, he would tie him up with shoelaces and stack dishes on his back, whispering, "If I hear these move, I'll kill her." Then he would drag the woman into another room and rape her. Repeatedly, methodically, coldly. Sometimes he stayed for hours, ransacking the house, eating food from the refrigerator, drinking beer, even pausing to take breaks before vanishing as silently as he'd arrived. Over 50 attacks were attributed to him. Neighborhoods were paralyzed with fear. Families installed extra locks, motion lights, and alarm systems. Gun sales skyrocketed. The press issued warnings almost daily. But nothing stopped him. He always seemed to be one step ahead. And then, by 1979, he was gone again. But he wasn't done. He had simply evolved. That same year, in Southern California, couples began to be found murdered in their homes. The attacks were more vicious now. Victims were bludgeoned, tied up with the same distinctive knots, and left in disturbing positions. In some cases, there were signs of sexual assault. Again, he had done his homework, breaking into homes ahead of time, disabling locks, leaving no fingerprints. Investigators called this new killer the original Night Stalker, and once again the community reeled. No one connected him to the East Area Rapist, and certainly not to the Visalia ransacker. These crimes, though similar in cruelty, seemed too spread out, too disconnected. But they were all the work of one man. By 1986, the original Night Stalker had murdered at least 13 people. His final known victim was 18-year-old Janelle Cruz, attacked and killed in her home in Irvine, California. And then, just like before, he vanished. The trail went cold for decades. Detectives never stopped working the case, but tips ran dry, and evidence led nowhere. In 2001, a significant discovery finally connected the dots. DNA from rape kits in Northern California matched the DNA from the murder scenes in the South. The East Area Rapist and the original Night Stalker were the same person. It was a chilling realization. The same man had evolved from a burglar to a serial rapist, then a serial killer. He had changed names, locations, and methods, but one thing remained constant. He had never been caught. For years, his identity remained unknown. Hundreds of suspects were investigated. Sketches were drawn, profiles built, and task forces assembled. But he remained a phantom, a ghost. Then, in 2018, everything changed. Investigators took a bold new step. Using a technique called genetic genealogy, they uploaded the killer's DNA to a public genealogy website used by people researching their family trees. It returned a partial match, someone related to the killer. From there, genealogists and law enforcement worked backwards, building a family tree, tracing relatives, and narrowing the list until only one suspect remained. His name was Joseph James DeAngelo. He was 72 years old, a former police officer, a father, a grandfather. He had lived in quiet suburban neighborhoods for years, hidden in plain sight. On April 24, 2018, DeAngelo was arrested outside his home in Citrus Heights, California. When police collected a discarded item to test his DNA, the match was undeniable. They had their man. The monster who had evaded capture for over 4 decades was finally unmasked. In 2020, DeAngelo pled guilty to 13 counts of first-degree murder and 13 counts of kidnapping as part of a plea deal to avoid the death penalty. In court, survivors and family members faced him directly, some for the first time in over 40 years. They spoke of the trauma, the nightmares, and the years of silence. DeAngelo, frail and quiet, offered little in response. When asked if he had anything to say, he whispered, "I have listened to all your statements, and I'm truly sorry to everyone I've hurt." He was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Joseph DeAngelo now spends his remaining days behind bars. A caged predator, his reign of terror finally ended. But the story doesn't end with him. His arrest marked the beginning of a new era in crime solving. Since 2018, genetic genealogy has helped crack hundreds of cold cases, offering hope to families who had waited for answers that once seemed impossible. For decades, the Golden State Killer was a nameless fear. Today, he is a man known, a life condemned, and a case that proved no matter how carefully you hide, science doesn't forget.